you know, and I always think that, rather than just looking at calories, actually look at the nutrient content, which
Right.
is important. And every meal really matters. And I think that's another good thing to actually have on your mind. Every meal makes a difference. Every time you put something in your mouth, it's either good for your health or it's not.
And we'll
Yeah.
dive in.
Yes. First of all, thank you for having me on your show. I'm Tess Cheng, a health and wellness coach based in Miami, but I do work with clients online, mainly actually on Zoom. I help them build sustainable lifestyle habits despite their very demanding schedules. And so we look at different aspects of lifestyle. We're talking about nutrition, exercise, sleep, which a lot of people overlook, stress management, and social connection. And, we dive in and see how, we can actually improve some of those habits. Or build healthy habits and get rid of some unhealthy ones, and try to see how their schedules are, because a lot of these busy entrepreneurs, professionals, they're traveling a lot. They're not in one place. It's easy to be healthier when you're home, but when
Mm.
you're on the road a lot, when you're out and about at conferences, meetings, dining out with clients, you have temptations, distractions, and then traveling as well. You're dealing with different time zones. So all those things have to be taken into consideration. And then we come up with a program as to how it works. I do have a nutrition background. I have a master's in
Okay.
clinical nutrition. I got that from NYU. And after I graduated, I did practice as a nutritionist for quite a while in Los Angeles. But then after a few years, I realized that it's not really, other people need help with other things, not just their diet. And then when I moved to Miami, COVID happened, and I just switched into wellness coaching, and it works really well for everyone because everyone, benefits from a holistic approach.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I'm curious because you mentioned like traveling, you mentioned lifestyle. Um,
Mm.
how often do you see that people, even just their routine is thrown off and that throws off? Because I feel like when I'm traveling, it's not that I don't maybe eat the same or I don't sleep the same or whatever. What I feel like bothers me the most is the routine. My routine is thrown off from, if I'm back home. And
Yeah.
I think that's something that's also very overlooked is, your
Mm.
routine, your daily routine.
Oh yes, absolutely. I have that experience myself, so I know, where they come from. It's hard, you are actually away, and the restaurants might be different, the cuisines, the weather, makes you want different things, and and with a different routine, it's harder, because perhaps you are very regimented with your workouts, and you say, I work out, Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Hmm.
at a certain time. But when you're away, everything gets different. And perhaps if you like going to the gym, you are a gym member here, but when you're traveling, it might not be so easy. So you have to find other ways to get the movement in.
Yeah.
You have always constantly have to be on the lookout. I think it's more helpful um, if you stay mindful, if it's your priority, you just think you look for opportunities to do those things. Same when you are at a restaurant, you can, it's not the same as being at home because everything then can be controlled by you. You know what's going in your food, in your dish. When you're actually at a restaurant, you just hope that even when you make requests, they do what you ask them to do.
Yeah.
But even looking at the menu, you can choose certain things, you can avoid certain items. So I think it's the mindset
Hmm.
and just having those as priorities.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's actually a really good point about the restaurants because you don't have, you don't have that. I don't want to say control, but you don't really have the control on what goes in the food or not. Even if
Yeah.
it's like, some restaurants offer like gluten free and allergy free,
Mm.
but you're essentially just trusting that they're cleaning the equipment or whatever before they make the food.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Um,
That's why I do suggest to my clients, a lot of them enjoy dining out, but I think, it's the balance, so
mm,
it is good to have certain days when you actually just eat at home.
yeah, no, for sure. So you mentioned that there were like several different, I guess maybe areas of focus in your coaching. I know you mentioned what was it? You said community or connection,
Social connection,
social connection. Okay. And what were the other ones? There were a couple things you said.
stress management,
Oh yeah, that's a big one. Yeah. Stress management.
sleep.
Sleep. Oh man. Okay, so I kind of want to dive into these a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because I think I guess maybe we'll start with sleep because I think you are right. Most people don't, it's very overlooked, you know.
Mm,
Like there's still I remember back in my early 20s, I would sleep maybe like 5 or 6 hours a night and think I was good, but I didn't
yeah.
realize I started working out 27 when I was 27, 28, something like that. And so I didn't realize how important sleep was just to even, your gym routine, like your muscle
Mm,
building and that kind of stuff. And then I realized how important it was to actual just general health, you know. And so I
yes.
think it is something that's like overlooked a lot. People don't think,
Mm,
and then people think about like, well, you're supposed to sleep 8 hours. I had I don't know what you would call this person. She's a doctor, and she is like she does sleep is what her profession is in. And she mentioned that everybody has a set point. So like whatever your set point is sort of kind
mm,
of like what it is. So it might be 7 hours for one person or 9 hours for somebody else, but you just kind of have to figure out what it is for you. But my thing is like the quality of sleep, the
mm,
dark room and all that kind of
yeah.
stuff, what you do
Mm,
before sleep, even with the
yeah.
TVs and stuff. So I
Yes.
mean, it's just very important, that people don't talk about it enough.
Oh, yes, definitely. I've been tracking my sleep for quite a while, and I do encourage my clients to do so. Maybe perhaps not in the long term, but just for a few months. That way, they can see what they're doing and what the patterns are, and they can actually learn a lot, from the tracking device. And yeah, definitely what you said, before, what you eat, what you drink, winding down, because you don't want stimulation too much before you go to sleep. And it all helps. And not just the overall well being, but research does show that sleep is so important for brain health. And now I think people are more aware that not just the body, but the brain is what
For
we,
sure.
we you know, we want to stay healthy. Cognitive function is so important. Especially now, we hear a lot about Alzheimer's. So I think we are more aware. And sleep is unique because that's the only time when the brain gets to do what it needs to do during the day. You can imagine just from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, it's so much going on, so much information going in. We have a whole list of things to do. We just, constantly thinking,
Hmm.
getting new information and getting everything organized. But when we go to sleep, that's the time when the brain gets to remove all the um, toxins that it accumulates throughout the day. That's really the only time, it actually can just process everything, our memory, information. So I think, I think I definitely suggest that people give that a priority. I know it's hard with a hectic life. You say you only have all those hours, and very often in the evening, people think, I want to relax, I want to watch a movie, and then sleep becomes, takes second place.
Hmm.
But I think again, it's like nutrition, exercise. Some research actually shown that sleep might be more important than exercise and
For sure.
good nutrition.
Yeah.
But it's not something we talk about. And, and some people say, oh, but, all those, for example, someone like Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan, they always said, oh, they only slept for 4 or 5 hours,
Hmm.
and they felt fine. Um, but, what
Well,
they might feel fine, but, what's really going on inside?
there's I don't know what it's called, but there's like some sort of genetic mutation where a person can sleep like, a few hours like that, 5 hours
Mm,
a night and function well. And I've heard that Donald Trump is supposedly has whatever that gene or whatever is.
Yeah.
All these, like I've heard Elon Musk. I'm using terrible
Mm.
examples right now. I know that, but I'm using Elon Musk. I've heard that he sleeps like 6-7 hours a night.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but you had to think about, like you said, longevity and sustainability. Like, can somebody do that long term? Because I think that's where, it's, if we have like a bad night's sleep and then the next day we can't focus or we're tired or whatever, I think that's kind of obvious, but we have to ask, like, long term, like doing this consistently every night, like what are the consequences of that? um so yeah, I think you're right. And I think too, going back to it, the quality of sleep, like what we do before, the bright
Mm.
lights and the TVs and the phones and everything. I think that's that, because that can really um be detrimental to your sleep. But I hope we have time to talk about nutrition here in a little bit, because I got some nutrition questions I want to ask. But
Yeah.
so going back to the other sort of area of focus, it was sleep. You mentioned stress management.
Mm.
So what do you recommend for that? Do you recommend like exercise or meditation or prayer, or like when you say stress management, like what does that sort of entail?
All those things you just mentioned, but also all those lifestyle areas, that I've talked about, they're all interlinked, they're all interconnected.
Mm,
So sleep is part of it. When you don't sleep well, you're more likely to be stressed. It's more difficult to actually manage your stress. You're tired. And you might be, more difficult to regulate emotions, and then everything becomes out of sync. You find, in the morning you wake up tired, and then you just feel overwhelmed.
mhm,
So sleep is part of it. And yes, to find out what works for you, meditation, breathing exercise. I do breathing exercise in the morning, and I've been doing that for quite a while. I just find it easier than meditation. But meditation, has a lot of known health benefits. I will encourage people to try it and see, whether you can incorporate that into your daily routine. Perhaps download an app to begin with, and try and do that. And having breaks throughout the day,
mm,
that's really important for your brain, for your eyes. We spend a lot of time in front of the screen, so
mhm,
it's important to get away from it. Yes, exercise is fantastic, but then exercise has so many benefits, not just to manage your stress. So it should be something that one bears, keeps in mind, that one has to do on a regular basis. It's important, for our mood, for um, glucose regulation, for weight management, and also for social connection. If you enjoy an activity you can do with your friends, or even going to a gym, you see other people there. Like myself, I work from home a lot.
mhm.
So, and I live on my own. It's good to, when I go to the gym. I find it therapeutic, because you can see people, working out there. You're not by yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and and you get to know faces, and you can say hello, and so it's good for you. But and a lot of things you can do to manage your stress, but not let it get out of hand.
Mhm.
Then that's when people get burnt out.
Yeah. No, for sure. Uh, yeah, man, it's so, like, that's such a good point about the sleep too. Going back to the sleep and the connection with the stress management, because I've noticed if I have a bad night of sleep, um, one thing that I notice immediately is like I feel like I'm more easily irritated,
Mm,
about throughout the day. Uh, and I guess that's a pretty common thing with people,
yeah,
but versus if I have a good night's sleep, it's almost like I'm, the complete opposite,
oh yeah,
very, very difficult to get agitated about things. Um,
yeah,
so yeah, I don't know. It's just like I think in today, yeah, like everybody's so busy. There's all, like, everybody's got things going on, and the COVID completely changed the world. Whether it was, it was in everything was in person, everything went to online, and this kind of shifts into the next thing I want to talk about, which is the social connection. I think the even we got to a point there for a while where just getting outside and being around other people was therapeutic, because for the longest time
yeah,
we didn't have that during COVID. We were all by ourselves, and I would be so curious to see like what correlation that had with like people getting sick. I don't mean from COVID. I
Mm,
mean just like other sicknesses during COVID. Like how much of that was attributed to us not being outdoors, not being in the sunlight, not being around other people,
yeah.
just being overloaded with this stress, this fearful, virus that was out there. Um,
Mm,
I don't know. I just feel like how much of that was like what percentage of the illness that was not COVID and the illness and distress, what percentage of that came from just the isolation? And I know people were with their families more, people were at home more, but a lot of people weren't, like a lot of
yeah.
people who don't have families, they were just at home with who,
Yes.
if maybe it was themselves, maybe it was just them, or maybe
Oh,
it was
yeah.
one other person.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but that kind of leads into the social connection aspect because I think that's something that's really big. And I think that's one positive of social media is that social connection because we
Mm,
can be with like-minded people that maybe we don't really meet in person, but we can be in same spaces with those. I was talking to a guy yesterday and he's considering starting a business and he was like, well, I don't even know anybody to ask these questions to. And it's when you're in that spot, it's almost like it's discouraging because you feel that you're the only one. You feel that you're
yeah.
kind of by yourself. But anyway, so he and I were talking and I have a business. So he was talking to me about those things. And then he found this sort of group online of other people. And long story short, he found that sort of community, that sense of community. Um, and that's encouraging to me because I know it's discouraging to people who are in that space when they're trying to do something that they feel like is like they're the only ones, especially if they come from a family. Like, let's say that's, starting a business is not necessarily, the optimal route as far as their family is
Yeah.
concerned. And they're sort of, discouraged from doing that.
Yeah.
And said all that to say this, I think that the power of that social community, especially online, is very
Mm.
healthy for us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. When you go online, especially if you decide, you want to get healthier, and you can actually find like-minded people, which is really helps. And there's some information you can actually exchange messages, and you can actually, you can work as accountability partners. If you don't have that in your social circle, but at least online, you might find someone say, "Oh, I'm trying to get better with my sleep." So you can find a buddy
Yeah.
online, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing so let's keep track on each other, and talk throughout the day, throughout the week, and see if we're doing any of those things." And if we don't, what challenges have we come about, and support each other. So that really is good. But I think, but the other thing though, I think people have to be mindful again not to spend too much time on social media. And I always say to my clients, when you go to bed, try to have at least an hour to wind down and don't reach out for your phone, turn it off. Better still, turn it off and put it in another room so you're not tempted. And
Hmm.
please, if you wake up in the middle of the night, don't go to your phone and check for messages. I
Yeah.
have I have friends who send me posts, from Instagram at some ungodly hour. I know because I turn my phone off when I go to sleep because my sleep is sacred.
Yeah.
But when I wake up, I turn my phone on and I see all these messages and posts, and when they were sent to you, because there's a
Hmm.
time. And then I would tell them off. I said, "What were you doing at 3 o'clock in the morning? You should be sleeping."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's like I'm kind of mixed on social media, and I've voiced my opinion on it before because I think it could be, you know, very useful. For a lot of us, we can learn things, we can interact with other people, but like you said, we had to be careful with it, and we also too we have to know that like it's not. It's almost like I don't want to say it's fake, but it's like a highlight reel. Like I think
Mm,
a very dangerous thing is that a lot of us, we compare ourselves to other people on social
mm,
media, uh, while forgetting the fact that what we see is like very, very carefully chosen to put on social media.
yes.
It's like these little small parts of what we see is not like the full picture.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's
And
something important too. But
yeah.
also too, like I said, just where we're at right now with technology and AI, and almost everybody has a phone.
Mm.
is it can be very beneficial to learn, to share information, to be like we're talking about in these same sort of mindset spaces. We just have to be careful with it, I think.
Oh, very much so.
Hmm.
Yes, the pictures are retouched. People always look better than they do.
Yeah.
And yeah, you really have to be careful and not to spend too much time getting obsessed about it and not believing in everything you come across,
Hmm.
especially with health information. A lot of it is it's not real. It's kind of ridiculous,
Yeah.
at times. But certain things are useful. I use it, to send, to send information to my clients, just as little reminders. For example, if I see a short post saying, stay hydrated and some of the benefits, then that morning I might just forward it to them and say, look, that's why it's important. Keep,
Hmm.
drinking your water. Especially in the morning when you get up. So certain things, really help. But like everything, we have to make sure that we don't spend too much time on it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's something else too is that there's a machine that's like built into social media, which is the algorithm, and it's
Mm,
going to feed us what it thinks we want to see. And so
yeah.
like you can be conscious of that or you can be unconscious of it. If you're unconscious of it, you're going to get things that just maybe seem random, but you can sort of curate that algorithm to where it'll feed you things that maybe you think are educational or beneficial.
Mhm.
Like you can do that over time. Um, but I think another thing too to be concerned about with social media, especially like the video, like TikTok and stuff, it's like it's almost like it's shortened the attention span
Yeah.
of people when they get on it, because I've seen like big creators, millions of followers and stuff, talk about like originally it was they could post a video for like 60 seconds and people would
Mm,
watch it, but now Facebook or whoever it is will give you the analytics, and it's like people only watch like the first 3 or 4 seconds of a video.
yeah.
And it's like, man, that's crazy to think about. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
a movie is 90 minutes long. So
Yeah.
like what are the odds that a person's going to watch a movie and not touch their phone or not be distracted by something else for 90
Right.
straight minutes? Or
Yeah.
not even that, like do something more productive, like do a work. So there's like I think it's called ultradian cycles. It's like 90-minute cycles in your
Mm,
day-to-day life. And I think that we are the most productive in those ultradian sort of rhythms. So you have your
mm.
circadian rhythm, which is like your sleep pattern, but then you have ultradian, which is that 90-minute. And Andrew Huberman talks about this a lot.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
productivity. I love Andrew Huberman, by the way. I love
Yeah.
his podcast. He talks about like the productivity, like if you section your deep work around that 90 minutes,
Mm,
it'll be much more beneficial for you. But anyway, we have those cycles, and I don't know if we how can we really focus on that? Not even 90 minutes. What if it's like 30 or 20? If our
yeah.
attention span is like so, I don't want to say I don't want to say damaged, but it's like
Yeah.
it's a rhythm that we're in that 3 or 4 second span, and then we're off to the next thing.
Right. Yeah,
I,
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think we really have to be careful about that, what's going on. I've actually suggested some books for people to read on, one of them is called Overloaded,
mhm.
and the other one's Dopamine Nation. Is on my reading list on the website, because I'm always looking out for books that are actually educational and might actually help with overall well-being. Yeah, with what's happening with the social media and devices, I think we really have to train ourselves to be more attentive and to actually have more patience to spend time on doing things. I think now even people find that reading a book is hard.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because they might just drift off and they might just go for the phone and say, "Oh, what
Hmm.
about the messages?" And I think it's important to turn the messages volume down and not actually be controlled
Hmm.
by the devices, by technology. And I think we have to have that sense of control, and that applies to nutrition, exercise, sleep. We just have to be. We want to stay as the boss of all of
Hmm.
this. So even if you've got ice cream sitting in the freezer, is calling you, but you say, "Oh, no, 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 no." But I know what I'm having today is not an ice cream day. Perhaps
Hmm.
tomorrow, and be intentional about what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You
Yeah.
mentioned the devices. Is so I journal a lot. I don't read as often as I used to, although I do read a lot of things. I just don't read the books as much as I used to. But I'm sort of guilty of reading the stuff that's on my phone versus reading an actual book, and it's a different experience. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
different if you read like a digital book versus an actual book, and it's also too journaling is it's a completely different experience if you're typing
Mm,
something in your phone or typing on a computer versus
yeah.
writing by hand.
Yeah.
You know, those are two completely different experiences, I feel like.
Oh,
And
yes.
most of my journaling that I do is digital. It's not like I write it down. And so
Yeah.
maybe I'll transition to writing, doing more writing.
Yeah,
Because
try
it's
it.
just different.
Yeah, definitely. I do encourage my clients to journal, and I always suggest to them to actually write it out
Mm,
rather than type it in. It's yeah, and then you can just go back and look at it. I think it's also more relaxing,
yeah.
and I think it's really important at these days to spend less, to actually not to spend so much time, you know, on the computer, on the iPad, phone, to and what about eye health? Andrew Huberman's big on eye health.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
another good point. You know, something that's crazy for me that I've realized is the typing versus the writing. It seems like when you, especially with journaling, like when you're writing it out, it's very personal. You know, it's your
Mm,
own thoughts. It's, you know, whatever it is. It's like it's I'm writing it down, and it's like I'm journaling about whatever, like about me. Versus if I type, it's almost like, this sounds crazy, but it's almost like there's something else involved other than me because it's on the phone.
yeah.
It's like I'm talking to a digital version of myself, if that makes sense. You know, because it's like
Yes.
it's digitized. You know what I mean? It's like it's digital, and so we have it on the screen versus writing it out, and the thoughts are sort of flowing through you to the paper. It's like a completely different. It's almost like it's like, I don't want to sound crazy here, but it's like you're integrated with a digital version of yourself when you're journaling
Mm,
on something digital, and it doesn't have that. I don't want to say connection because it's yourself, but it doesn't have that same sort of feeling to it. You know what I mean? It's just I
no,
don't know. It's
that's
just not the same.
no, no, and also you might associate it with work because that's what we do when we're
Ah,
working.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's, then you think, oh, I'm just typing a message to my client or writing a blog. But when you're writing, because these days we do so little of it, and I think it's really, it's a very good thing to do, especially at night, when you're actually winding down. And that way you're not exposed to blue light either. So, yeah, I would encourage you to do it, switch
Yeah.
to writing and,
Yeah,
and
no, I'll have
see
to
how
try
it
that.
works.
So I wanted to ask you something. So you said health and wellness coaching is kind of what you do.
Yes.
So how do you like how do you define the difference in the two, like health versus wellness? Because I think when people hear those things, they think they're sort of the same. And I don't think they're I mean they're related, but I don't think they're the same.
Mm.
So what do you think is like the key difference between health and like just wellness?
I would say that health is more, when you're talking about biomarkers, blood work, chronic diseases, and, whereas wellness is more about generally how you feel, both
Mhm,
mentally, emotionally, and physically. And all those things, have work together actually to actually help you to feel the way you do every day.
mhm,
Whereas health, I think, is just more specific, looking at different elements of it, whether you're working out, getting enough sleep, um, and how you're actually managing your diet. But wellness is emotional. A lot of it's emotional, and it's important because that's when people focus. A lot of people are very good at actually um, doing things physically, and even when it comes to the diet, some people are actually very good at it, but
mhm.
then they forget about how what stress does to themselves, how it actually can alter everything, and and having that sense of purpose is also important, and feel that you are supported, by the people who surround you, and how how in terms of social connection, how you feel, all that actually comes into play when with wellness. with your overall well-being.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good way to define that. I think that's I think that makes sense to me. I think health is yeah, I think you're right because eh, I guess what the thing I want to say that leads up to this is like we can be healthy and not necessarily be well at the same time
Mhm.
if we're not focused
Yeah.
on the two different ones. Um,
Yes.
because I think that is true. I think the more emotional aspect of it is on the wellness side, or maybe the mental aspect of it, which leads into things like emotional health, mental health. I feel like would be more in the
Mm.
wellness space. Although a bad mental health can affect your health.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. I think there's more like conversations being had about health and wellness these days than there were.
Mm.
I think there's a lot of information that we know that maybe we didn't. Even in the nutrition space, I know you probably know this. Like the recommendation now is like 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, and that's not even for bodybuilders anymore. That's just for like
Yeah.
general, even for like
Oh,
general
yes.
health. It's like what 0.7 grams per pound.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I think, I suggest 1 gram of protein per pound in
Hmm.
of ideal body weight.
Okay.
Whereas before it was, a lot less. But now, they show that we really need more protein, and a lot of people are not eating enough of it.
Yeah. I mean, but
Yeah.
it's crazy. And then, I don't know if you got into this with the like the vitamins and stuff with your nutrition stuff, but the daily recommended doses that we were given were like way lower in a lot of cases than
Mm.
what we actually needed. Um, and then so we get a supplement and it's got like 600% of vitamin D, and we think that that's too much, and that's like it's probably not even enough, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It's just it's there's been and I don't know why it was. I don't know what happened, but there's just been a crazy shift. I feel like in the health, wellness, nutrition space. Uh, I don't know, probably within the last 5 years, but definitely within the last decade. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think with all the research that's going on, it really helps, the people are finding out what's happening and what's needed,
Hmm.
in the body. Yeah, I mean, with protein, I think it's just incredible. Everyone's talking about protein these days, and, the amount of food you will have to eat if you think about it. I mean,
Hmm.
I have a problem getting, all that amount on a daily basis. It's just a lot of food. But then
Hmm.
again, you have to be mindful. So you have to make sure you don't, eat too much of the other things to leave you room, for the important things. And
Yeah.
that helps too. That way you just stay healthier. And it's not so, complicated,
Hmm.
because there's only so much we can eat at any one time. If you eat more of one thing, you eat less of something else.
Man, so I really want to dive into nutrition. Before we do that, let me wrap up about the health and wellness stuff real quick. So if you had to, just like with the clients that you work with, if you had to say like what a common barrier was in the health and wellness space between like the life that people have or who they are and the life that they want, like what's sort of a maybe a common or some of the most common things. And I guess we've already talked. Maybe it's the sleep and maybe it's the social connection, that kind of stuff. But like, what do you think? When we say sleep, is it lack of sleep? Is it what they're doing before? Is it their environment? I mean, what do you think are like common things that are keeping people from their ideal health and wellness, I guess, spot where they want to be health and wellness wise? I know we talked about sleep and stuff, but like, is it, like I said, is it the lack of sleep, or is it like with social connection, they don't have enough of it? Is it negative social connection, maybe around the wrong people? I don't know. I'm just kind of
Yeah.
guessing.
Yeah. I think what it is that people are just overwhelmed. They try, they hear so many things they should be doing,
Mm,
getting enough sleep. They shouldn't be drinking too much caffeine, and they shouldn't, they have to eat at a certain time. And then what about winding down, turning your phones off, your phone off, all these things. I think what it is that people just get overwhelmed.
mm,
And when you hear all that, you don't know which one to try first. I always say, take one step at a time. Try something small, something that you are willing to practice, rather than try doing 5, 6 things in one go. I mean, our brains just can't cope with that. So do one thing that's actually so it can be sustainable, something that you think you can do. Your friend might be able to do something, but but that's him. He might like doing this, but it might not work for you. You might have a different schedule altogether. And also, with different cultural backgrounds, we are both very different.
Mm-hmm.
And so try do one thing small, not overwhelming. And if you feel that, you can actually get that in and do it for a while. So it becomes a habit, it becomes natural. You can get it into your routine and then build on it. And the other thing I feel is the mindset. Rather than being resistant, when people say, I want to be healthy, they think they want to be healthy, but then you have to do the work. You have to make
Right.
the effort. It doesn't suddenly you don't suddenly just become healthy. Sleep doesn't suddenly become easy. You don't suddenly just wake up one day and think, oh, I would just become so disciplined. I would just go to sleep at a certain time. You have to work at it. But if you care about your health and you believe that you can make changes, you can improve, you can incorporate these healthy habits into your routine one day, all of these things, then it's worth spending the time and work at it and have that mindset. You're not doing it yet, but you will, and it's possible. It's kind of crazy when people say to me, I always say, don't eat so much rice, especially to an Asian. They think, oh, wow, I was brought up to eat rice. How can you tell me that? That's not possible. Everything is possible. Don't have this um, mindset to say, I can't grow, I can't change. If it's something good for you, then, why not make the change? And just because you were brought up to do certain things, this doesn't mean you have to continue doing them, especially when you find out that those things are actually not that good for you in the long run. Embrace it, and say, um, rather than saying, oh, it's sleep, I have all these things to do. I only have 24 hours a day. It's a nuisance. It's not a nuisance. It's good for you. It's good for your brain. It's good for your body. When you sleep enough, you feel good the next day. Rather than being a Rottweiler, you're nice. Now you're nice
Right.
little poodle. Everyone, enjoys being with you. You have more time for your loved ones. You're more patient. You're
Mm-hmm.
less irritable. So yeah, the mindset is really important.
Yeah. Excuse me. That's a good explanation of that. Um, so, all right. So about nutrition, and I don't know how like deep you get into this. I don't know if do you still like, is this still, do you, I guess the question would be, with your health and wellness coaching, do you offer nutrition advice or coaching in with that? Or have you kind of like, I guess, moved on from that, I guess would be the question. Cause I don't want to, I want to stay relevant to like what what you're doing here.
Sure, yes. Well, naturally, food is part of wellness, so
Okay.
it's something I do coach my clients on. But what I don't do is what nutritionists and dietitians do. They give you strict diet
Okay.
plans very often. They tell you you have to follow this. I don't. I just I give suggestions.
Okay.
And I would say certain things like perhaps when you're going out, be mindful of certain things, always look out for it. And what are some and some strategies, how to incorporate those things into your routine, or certain things that you should avoid and limit.
Mm-hmm.
But I always say, if you have some chronic diseases, then yes, always consult your doctors first, before you know yeah, you go about with my suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
But food is important, and having healthy dietary habits would really help with the way you feel. And also, it could affect the way you sleep and the way
Mm-hmm.
you work out. I mean, for example, having a huge meal just before you go to sleep is not conducive to good quality sleep.
Yep.
Um, I always say, try to leave at least between 2 and 3 hours between your last meal and your bedtime.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I want to ask you about this because this is something that I've noticed recently. Um, I learned from Andrew Huberman about when to eat sort of what during the day. So I don't eat anything in the morning. I kind of fast in the morning until lunchtime or so. But if I do eat lunch, it's usually like a protein or maybe a fat, excuse me, a protein or maybe a fat dense meal. So I don't really like
Mm,
have like heavy carbs, in the middle of the
mm,
day or anything.
mm,
Because me, if I have heavy carbs, I work out usually in the evenings, afternoons or evenings. So if I have like a heavy carb meal, even a couple hours before my workout, I won't be as energized as I would if I ate like protein and fat, before. Um, but what I've noticed is recently, and I don't know if the body like adapts to this or if this is something that sort of develops over time. I've heard of people who have like celiac disease, like
mm,
the sensitivity to gluten. And I've noticed that if I eat something like a burger or a specific like pasta or something like a very uh, wheat heavy meal, I get it doesn't make me sick, but it makes me very almost like tired actually.
mm.
Um, and I think what that is that sensitivity to gluten. And I don't know if I've developed that from like having a clean diet for so long, and then I go to
Yes.
eat something else. But
Yeah.
it's fascinating to me because I don't feel that I've always been that way. I've met people who have
Yeah.
had like actual celiac disease, and they have
Hmm.
to be very careful to not eat anything with wheat or soy or anything. Um, but although I will say, even if like it's inconvenient because I don't really like burgers. Every once in a while, I might want one, but it's like I just feel so bad afterwards.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to start buying like gluten free stuff, the pasta and stuff, but which is unfortunate because I do like pasta. I like pasta, but
Mm,
even like
yeah.
spaghetti or something would just make me feel like so bad.
Yeah.
So I guess my question would be, do you know, like, is that an adaptation of the body if you eat clean for so long and then you introduce something that's maybe not so clean? Uh, but I mean, is that something we can develop like that, or I don't know. I'm trying to. I think that's something that's not really. That's another thing that's not really talked about enough. Because I've mentioned before on the podcast, like you can go to Italy and you can eat pasta, and their pasta is completely different from the pasta that's
Mm.
in America. Most of the food in America is completely different from other countries. We actually have stuff in our food that's banned in other countries.
Yeah.
Which is like crazy when you think about it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the body gets used to certain things and then overreacts, after a while. But I suppose, when you're younger, you eat all kinds of things. And
Mm-hmm.
so you throw all this stuff, into the system, and your body just has to fight it and process it and has to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And every day, if you're doing that, you just get used to feeling that way. But now you've been eating clean. So from time to time, you have that onslaught, shall we say. Your body say, "Hey, I don't like this. What happened, Cody? We were eating very clean yesterday, and now all this stuff in the pasta, the gluten, and so you feel the reaction. I think you just
Mm-hmm.
become more sensitive. Just like I'm going back to sleep again. If you used to having very good sleep every night, and suddenly one night, you have all this alcohol, you have late night, bright lights. The next day you feel lousy and you feel terrible. But if you were doing that more, and I'm sure, when you were younger, you were partying a lot more, and then every weekend is the same. It's then you never feel that great, So
Mm-hmm.
what's so different about not feeling great again? And I think that some part of it actually plays into it. But the other thing also, I think with gluten and wheat, because we spent so many years overloading our system with so much of it, eventually, I think it's not unusual to develop some kind of an allergic reaction to it.
Mm-hmm.
Not to the point where like people who have celiac, but you can feel some discomfort when you have that. I tend to have a low carb diet, especially when I eat at home. And so when I go out and indulge in a bowl of pasta, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
I just feel, it's just a bit, just a bit overwhelming. I don't know, the
Mm-hmm.
system, a bit bloated at times. But it's very different from just having, some chicken breast and broccoli.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Well, what I've noticed since I've
mhm.
been sort of cognizant of this is that, it's not just the pot, like say spaghetti. It's not just the pasta that has to be gluten free. It's also the sauce that's like in, the
Yeah.
spaghetti that might not necessarily be gluten free. So there's a lot of different aspects of it. Um, by the way, just so everybody is aware of this, if you make spaghetti And if you, instead of using ground beef, if you use ground turkey, it's absolutely phenomenal. It's really
Um,
good.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
because I mean, I don't know, man. Just I do like red meat. I like meat in general, but I do like red meat. But it's just the ground beef just really makes me feel bad afterwards. And I don't know if that's because of the fat content or what's
Hmm.
going on with that. But that's another thing too I've noticed is like the ground beef is like, I think that goes. Well, I guess the burger has bread that would be like gluten, but I think that's one of the issues that I have with burgers. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I don't know, man. It's like it's just so strange to me because I feel like for the longest time, like I didn't have that issue, and I guess because I was eating clean or whatever, and then I sort of swapped back and forth. I guess that was maybe why. Uh,
Yeah.
but you mentioned earlier, like you might recommend to someone not eating so much rice, and I've always thought that rice was sort of like I don't know about healthy, but maybe like carb wise, calorie wise. Is there an issue with rice?
Um, well, I was wearing a continuous glucose monitor for quite a while. Actually for about a year. I
Hmm.
don't anymore, because I did all the learning I needed to do. And with rice, whether it's brown rice or white rice, it would just, send my blood glucose up like sky high every single time. And it is carbs. So I would just suggest, eating less of it. And again, if you eat less of it, then you can have more protein. You have
Mm,
more room for the good things. Um, some clients of mine say to me, but then I don't feel full. I said, well, then have more vegetables and have more protein. Eventually you'll be full.
hmm.
It's what's playing on your mind. You think, oh, I must eat rice. No, you don't have to eat rice. But then certain cuisines would call for it more because they come with a lot of sauces.
Mm,
That's why Asian food is really designed, to be eaten with rice. Whereas if you just grill the chicken breast, you don't feel the need to. It's a lot cleaner. And so just all those things, just look out for it. And with rice, is you can reduce the amount. I'm not saying that suddenly overnight have none of it. Again, it's just too overwhelming. Work towards it. It's a bit like reducing sugar, just
hmm.
little bit by bit. Instead of having that much, eventually you will just have less and less, and then maybe like a, you know, portion for baby.
Yeah.
That would be enough.
So, all right. So, because a lot of people who are going to listen to this podcast are like athletes or people who are interested in building muscle. And my understanding is it's very difficult to do that without, not just protein, but carbs and calories.
Yeah.
So, would there be like a healthier alternative, or is it just are you saying like all carbs, like just cut down? Would that be your recommendation?
I would say, depends on what carbs you're talking about. But if you want grains, I would say quinoa would be better.
Okay.
Have you ever tried it?
I've had it. Well, not home cooked. I've had it at a restaurant,
All
and
right.
it was good. It was okay. I'm not
Yeah.
sure what went into it when they were making it, but it was
Yeah,
okay.
and it has protein, which
Okay.
and rice doesn't. And it has protein, which is good for you, and
Mm,
you can have it hot or cold, and it goes with salad. So I would suggest quinoa. But my glucose monitor still shows that it does increases my my
mm.
blood sugar level, but not to the same extent as brown rice or white rice. And the other thing is, people say, oh, but with rice. Um, Okay, but what about brown rice? It's got more fiber. It does, but research shows that a lot of brown rice actually has a high level of arsenic,
Mm.
which we don't want inside our body because it's heavy
Right.
metal. So it's another good reason to cut it out.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah. But I think quinoa is good, and maybe have some beans, instead. And those would be my suggestions.
Okay. Um, man, that's so interesting. So I do have another sort of nutrition question, and I'm guilty of this. I'm picking on myself right here. I try to maintain like a specific calorie intake, um, throughout the day. And for me, so my experience was before I started working out, I was a lean guy. Like I was never really overweight and had to lose the weight. I was the person who was sort of leaner and trying to put that weight on via,
Yeah.
with muscle. And so that was my experience. And so I try to maintain, even though I'm not trying to necessarily build more muscle, I'm just trying to stay athletic and keep the muscle that I
Mhm.
have. So I'm trying to maintain a calorie intake. Well, sometimes I won't, meet my meal goals, whether it's, I don't eat enough or, whatever. Um, so I'm guilty of this. I'll sort of maybe snack on some junk food because I know that's high calorie, and just maybe throw in an extra protein shake or whatever it is, get the
Yeah.
protein. But I've heard that, let me see, I want to make sure I'm saying this correctly. A calorie eaten is a calorie eaten, but a calorie burned is not a calorie burned, or to have that backwards. So in other words, when if just because you eat a calorie doesn't mean it's the same as a healthy calorie, or is it that they're burned? Like, I guess the question would be, is junk food calories consumed in a different way versus like a leaner meal?
Mm. Yes, yes. Yeah, so basically not all calories are equal.
Okay, that was okay. So I had it backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And yes, I think, that's really the case. And that's why, that's another reason to actually choose healthy foods. It's not
Mm,
just the calories. And especially if food has, certain fats that are not healthy for you, that they could cause inflammation, fat from a piece of wild salmon is better than fat, from French fries.
mm,
Um,
okay.
and, and, and so, and I always think that, rather than just looking at calories, actually look at the nutrient content, which
Right.
is important. And every meal really matters. And I think that's another good thing to actually have on your mind. Every meal makes a difference. Every time you put something in your mouth, it's either good for your health or it's not.
Mm,
I can't think of anything that's really neutral. And so every time you eat something is an opportunity to actually nourish your body.
yeah.
And so if you don't, you've deprived yourself from that opportunity. So if you have 3 meals a day, if you happen to be someone who eats 3 meals a day and you have good, healthy meals and one meal is not, then you've deprived your body the opportunity to have that nourishment. And then the next day it has to catch up.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I will tell you that I feel completely different, excuse me, versus when I eat clean versus not.
Yeah.
It's just a completely different, like, it's especially mentally. I feel like I feel
Yeah.
much better mentally. Um,
Yes.
like we talked about with the pasta and stuff earlier, just that sort of lethargic feeling afterwards or whatever. But
Mhm.
it's not even that, like, and it's not even the day of. It's like if I have if I eat clean for a day, it's usually the next day that I'll feel the benefits of that. And I don't
Yeah.
know if that's because of how the body, absorbs the nutrients and stuff, but um and it's almost like, man, when you feel that, it's like it's almost like I want to say addicting, but it's almost like it
Yeah.
becomes something that you crave because it's
Oh,
just
yeah.
such a completely different thing.
Definitely. Yes, I think I would actually encourage listeners to actually, take note of how they feel when they
Mm,
do certain things, whether they exercise or not, well, whether they get enough sleep, if they manage the stress, and especially with food. Your body really tells you, gives you all those signals. When you don't feel well, it's just telling you, I'm not happy. What you've done to me, with
mm,
what you've done, what you've thrown in, and do some little experiments, do different things and see what difference they make, and rather than just doing it without thinking, and that way you can learn a lot and it could be fun too.
mm. Yeah, we definitely have to listen to our body, man, and I don't think we've been educated on that enough to listen to what it's trying to tell us.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's so crazy that for the basic education system in America, we are not taught nutrition. I don't know why nutrition is not. I mean, there might be a little bit of it taught, but not on the level that we really need it. You know, and
No.
it would seem like that's like the basic thing, like one of the basic things to know about life. Like, why are we?
Oh, yeah.
In our first 12 years of mandatory education, why are we not taught that?
Oh,
I don't know.
yes.
I mean, that among many other things that we're not taught that we should be. But anyway,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
another conversation. Uh, but yeah, no, I've appreciated. I've liked talking to you today, and appreciate your time and insight. Did we not cover anything that you wanted to?
No, we actually, I've enjoyed our conversation very much. One thing I would say is that, you know, don't overwhelm yourself. Like I said, try different things. And you don't have to work, alone, have a friend, have a support system. If it helps, me get someone professional to work with you. That way, it might be easier to build those habits, especially when you're new to health and wellness. And then you always feel you have an accountability partner, and that could actually work out better for you.
Okay. So do you have a social media or website or anything where people can contact you and get in touch with you?
Yes, I do. The website is Glow with Tess, with one W, so it's GLOWITHTESS. Go on there, take a look at my blog post, sign up for the monthly newsletters. This way you get some health and inspirations every month. And I'm on social media, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. The handle is Glow with Tess. So check me out on those. I've just had a new book coming out called Confident You. The
Mm,
Raw Conversations, and it's a collaboration with a group of wonderful ladies. We got the opportunity to share stories in this collaboration. It's wonderful. It's on Amazon, so take a look at it.
okay. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, So the name of the podcast is the Pure Wisdom Podcast, and sort of keeping with that theme of wisdom, I asked all the guests at the end if they could share one of the most important lessons they've ever learned, and this could be from your personal life if you're comfortable sharing it, or your career, either as a coach or as a nutritionist. I know it's hard to pinpoint maybe the most important, but if you could share one of the most important lessons, what do you think that would be that you've ever learned?
Yes, I've actually learned that from attending Toastmasters meetings. When I actually joined a few years ago, I was not that comfortable with public speaking, and I was really
Mm,
nervous. But I feel that you just have to keep doing it and keep practicing, and get the support. Eventually, it becomes easier. And now I actually love doing it, and it's great to be able to share all this information I have, with the audience, with people that I care about. So it's wonderful. I just think, it might feel uncomfortable at the beginning, but keep practicing, keep doing it, and have faith, and
mm.
eventually you will master it.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that when we are afraid of something or when we're nervous about something, I think the best way to get over that is those incremental, maybe exposures to it, or to
Mm,
do it in the smaller ways. And it's crazy because when you do that, each time that you do it, you build sort of that self confidence with yourself, and it builds some
yeah.
momentum, to do it next time. Like if you do, a small version of it now, the next time it's a little bit bigger version, then bigger, and it's crazy how that works.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, I do
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been good talking to you. I was curious what we are going to get into today. So I'm gonna have to go, man. I'm gonna have to look at my diet. I'm gonna have to write down what like. So here's the thing. I found this app. It's called Kalo, I think it is, and it you can use your camera to scan your food, to take a picture of
Oh,
your
yeah.
food, and it'll tell you
Hmm.
like the contents and stuff, the calories and stuff.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know how accurate it is,
Uh-huh.
but it's at least it's interesting to have something like that,
Yes.
and I've used it on a couple things, and it seems to be pretty accurate as far as deciphering the actual ingredients that are in the food. Um, there is a fee for it. People have to pay for it, unfortunately, but it's
Yeah.
it's not very much for a year, But it's interesting to have something like that so that we can keep track of that.
Yes, and it's a good way to give you some insight, perhaps at the end
Hmm.
of the week. You can that way you can look back and say, oh, what did I eat? What did I have? What could I have done better? And how should I go forward the following week? Yeah, all those things can help. But don't get too over obsessed about it, and just keep looking. A bit the same as sleep tracker. your sleep
Mm.
tracking. If you start getting anxiety from something like that, then maybe it's time, to say to yourself, oh, maybe, I shouldn't be tracking my sleep so much because it's
Mm.
not making me feel that great about it.
That's one thing I do want to start doing. I haven't done yet is tracking my sleep. I know they make the rings that you can wear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and I feel like that
Yes.
would be because if I have a watch or something on when I try to sleep, I feel like I won't be comfortable enough to go to sleep. So if I have maybe a ring or something on, maybe I can track it that way.
Yeah, the ring is good. That's what I use, the Aura ring. And
Okay.
I've been using it for quite a while. I only use it when I go to sleep, but some people wear it all day. Apparently track your activity levels. But the sleep, I think, is great. And it actually gives you a lot of insight. It tells you a lot about your REM sleep, deep sleep. And not just that, when you start wearing it, you will see that it actually shows your heart rate and your
Mm.
HRV, heart rate variability. And that way, it tells you whether you were actually quite calm when you fell asleep. And it really shows what alcohol does and
Oh,
a
wow.
late night meal. I mean, it is incredible.
Yeah. I'll have to look into it. I looked at it a while back and I just didn't get it. It was kind of expensive. I thought a couple $100 for it
It
or,
is.
okay.
Yes, I think about 250. It depends
Okay.
on which model you get. But it's worth it, if you
Yeah.
actually use it all the time. And it becomes very helpful. And it's a good reminder how important sleep is. And at the same time, also it tells you, oh, you see, if you have a drink, then the night before, it's not good for you. And if you have
Right.
a big heavy meal, that's what it does to your heart rate. Your body temperature might stay elevated, your heart rate stays elevated. That
Mm.
is not a good thing.
No, yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, listen, I have appreciated talking to you. I'm going to
Yeah,
stop the
me too.
video. If you can hang out for just a minute, I'll explain to
Sure.
you uploading this thing. But it's been good conversation with you today.
Thank you very much.
Hey guys, I appreciate everybody tuning in today. If you enjoyed this podcast or enjoyed this episode, you can find more at Pure Wisdom Podcast. This is on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Rumble, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple and Google Podcasts. There you can subscribe, like, and share and interact with all of our content. Again, we appreciate it, and we will see you next time. This episode is brought to you by Excel Coaching Academy. Hey guys, I'm really excited to let you know that I started a mindset coaching business. So what I want to do with this business is I want to help entrepreneurs, business owners, salespeople, leaders, and fitness enthusiasts or athletes develop the right mindset to increase revenue, improve business or performance, and overcome the challenges needed to become the best version of themselves. You can get more information about this by emailing info@excelcoaching.academy.